Well, good afternoon to you. I am Stephen Graddick IV. I'll be your moderator for tonight's conversation. This is Imagine the New Possibilities, a conversation about building communities, a conversation about making sure we're responsible as journalists and responsible as activists for our communities and telling our story the right way. And that is a big issue for us today, and we're making sure that we connect the dots between how we tell our stories, as well as the people who are in the perfect positions, which is you guys, to tell the stories the right way. So this community conversation is for all of us to make the right choice. And Toyota has been a leader in environmental science, has been a leader in environmental technology, has been a leader in environmental community development. And so we are so excited to have today one of the top thinkers of our time joining us to talk about these issues, because these issues require an incredible amount of experience and an incredible amount of energy and resources to make and put an end to the solutions that we're going to consider the next of our times, to create the new possible. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the stage Mr. Hill Harper.
Steven, what's happening? How come you don't have like a DJ with entry music or anything like that?
That's what we need.
Hey everybody,
we need
what's going on? This is beautiful. It's a beautiful day. Nice to see you guys.
It is a good day.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Are you excited to be here?
I'm very excited to be
Very good, very good. It's amazing because we're sitting here in a room full of journalists, and you, my friend, have been amazing on TV. You guys like Hill Harper?
So the
all
one
right.
role I've never gotten to play is that of a journalist, and I want to play that someday.
Today's your lucky day.
Today's my lucky day?
Today's your lucky day. Come on down. Let's sit down.
Okay.
All right, guys, so we're going to start this conversation to talk a little bit about some of the work that's happening this week. And this week is super significant. The fact that you chose to join us in D.C., and you've got an amazing camp going on right now, and it's the camp for your foundation.
Yeah. So
tell me about that.
I have a camp that I do every year called the Summer Empowerment Academy, which is an extension of my Manifest Your Destiny Foundation. And this happens to be the 10-year anniversary of my first book, Letters to a Young Brother, Manifest Your Destiny.
Wait a minute. The
10th anniversary.
I remember when I first got the book.
And so when I first wrote that book, most of the publishing companies told me, they're institutionally prejudiced or institutionally racist notions that young brothers don't read, and that they are for-profit companies, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. So they couldn't publish this book, Letters to a Young Brother. But we proved them wrong. The book came out. It raced to the top of the New York Times bestsellers list. It has since gone on to be the #1 motivational book in history for young urban men and young men.
Wow, that's something to be proud of. Let's give them a round of applause. That is incredible.
And so what we have is a Summer Empowerment Academy that we're doing with all young men in Baltimore and young men here in D.C. We do the one in D.C. We do it on Howard University's campus, and the one in Baltimore is at Edmondson West High School. And so I went and talked to the young brothers in Baltimore yesterday, and today talked to the young men here in D.C.
Yeah, and this is a big issue because you're facing high school dropout epidemic, correct? And so because of that,
and moreover, there's an inextricable link between dropout rates in our communities and the incarceration rates in our communities. You can literally put a graph over the dropout rates, and unfortunately, where we're doing one of our camps in Baltimore, it's almost a 70% dropout rate of young black men in the Baltimore City public school system. And that's not to knock anyone or any of the teachers there, because I have respect for the teachers and what they do. The thing is, we're losing our young men, as most of you know, and so we need to impact it, and our program seeks to impact the dropout rate. At this point, we have almost 100% graduation rate of young men and young women that have gone through our program.
Wow, that is incredible. And today, at the camp today, will you be joining them?
I already did.
You've already stopped.
Did that.
You've already stopped.
So we did that this morning. Today's a great day here in D.C. for me. I spent time with this, because today was the last day of the camp. They graduated, so I got to talk to them, give them books, sign their books, and then they graduated. I come here, spend some time here at NABJ, and then tonight the president is having his birthday party, and so we're going to go party at the White House tonight. We'll have a good time.
We're going to get to that in just a second, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the serious issues of our environment. And I think dropout rates, I think male incarceration, the mass male incarceration of black and Hispanic men is a huge issue. And most people don't consider those environmental issues. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. You know, when we talk about environment or environmental sustainability, it comes down to literally how you define sustainability. You know, and many people think in terms of community sustainability, they think the definition has to do with clean water or
exactly.
And all
polar
the
bears
issues
and
around
ice caps
it.
melting.
Exactly.
That's right.
The kind of common definition. Yet I like to be much more expansive in the way I define sustainability and include the idea of empowerment, include the idea of jobs in the communities, and access to jobs, access to health care, access to healthy food and locally sourced food, and access to education and opportunity and job training. So if you don't have those other elements, you certainly don't have a sustainable community. And many of our communities, we can sort of check off all the lists that we don't have. We have food deserts. We have, moreover, we don't have significant or equal levels of public education or job training. We have military-style policing, which certainly isn't sustainable. We have all of these different elements that create unsustainable communities. So it's not just strictly environmental sustainability. It's a much bigger definition of what sustainability really is, and that's where I like to do my work.
That's right. And so we're really talking about the issue of equity, how much equity we have on this planet, especially in the United States. You've got 3 degrees.
But I want to lay down even more than equity.
Okay.
I like to push that further. I like to think of it in terms of opportunity or lack thereof. You know, we know it's not hard. We know where the jobs of the future are. We know they're in tech-based, engineering-based, mathematics, STEM-based jobs. We know that's the future. We also know that environmentally sustainable communities are the future as well. And so unless we start thinking in terms of pivoting and thinking of our local communities as sustainable communities and what changes we can make, we're not creating significant or sufficient opportunity in those communities. So it's not just equity, because equity actually, to me, is a reactive term.
Why do you say that?
It's actually saying, I want to catch this community up to be equitable to where other communities are. And I want to actually think more proactively and with a more innovative mind and say, how can I actually create communities and be much more proactive, saying, it's almost like the Wayne Gretzky quote that's saying the reason why he said he's the greatest hockey player of all time is he would skate where the puck was going. Everybody else skates where it is right now. Equity is about skating to where the puck is right now. I like to think more in terms of innovation and thinking about where's the puck going. It doesn't take a rocket science to know where it's going. We need to be thinking in terms of our young men and young women about environmental sustainability, technology, and opportunity and training in those spaces.
But what happens when your school systems don't teach that or you don't have access to that information?
Exactly. We have to bring the school systems kicking and screaming up to bear, but it's not just school systems. It's actually participation. I mean, the folks here at NABJ, these are brilliant minds that are here, yet many of us don't have a portal or a way to re-engage in our communities in a way that is a proactive, innovative way of re-engaging. So one of it's building institutions or easy ways to re-engage. To me, it's the Uberification, if you will, of re-engagement of the best and the brightest like yourself, like these amazing folks over here, these amazing folks over here. All of the folks I would poll here, if I walk through this convention center, I think that most would say, hey, I would like to help, I'd like to be engaged, but they don't have an easy way to do it. They don't have an easy way of actually getting re-engaged in a way that's meaningful and real, so many of them don't. Or they're individually mentor a friend or family member, but they don't have a way to have scale in terms of their impact.
Hill, are you finding that this is across the board for people who are not of color? Is that the same common thing?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question in the sense that that's such a big question. Let's be a little bit more micro about that question.
Right.
Let's think about innovation in terms of tech.
Okay.
And we think about job generation. I was recently, and I just published an op-ed, NBC News published an op-ed that I wrote. The title was, Where Are the Black and Brown Mark Zuckerbergs and Sheryl Sandbergs? And I was asked that question at a conference much like this because I was talking about the genius and incredible nature and the creativity of the young men and women I work with through my foundation, most of whom are black and brown, African American, Latino. So they said, if this community of young people are so talented and so magnificent, they were trying to challenge my notion of that, then how come we haven't seen a black or Latina Mark Zuckerberg or Sheryl Sandberg or Sergey Brin or, Travis from Uber? How come we haven't seen apps and these types of billion-dollar companies coming out of the African-American community, much like we saw, for instance, Berry Gordy in Motown? We knew, how come, where's that coming from? In the tech sphere. And I talked to them about access, and I talked to them that they're out there, but, and this is what I wrote in the op-ed, they don't necessarily have a data plan. There are barriers to entry in terms of much of this tech opportunity that we have to deal with first, and we have to bring these institutions kicking and screaming up. We also have to talk, for instance, with the FCC. The FCC, in many ways, has not come down with a ruling about sponsored data and what sponsored data could be, or how it can mean to have a more inclusive broadband access to traditionally underrepresented communities. So there are ways we can attack things from the policy perspective as well as the individual perspective to provide opportunity, because what if there's a young brother in my camp or whoever who has an innovative tech idea like Uber to solve a prescient problem that could grow into $1 billion business and hire hundreds or thousands of people from a given community. We need to create the engine of empowerment to allow him to develop that app or that technological idea.
Yeah, and really what you're talking about is the new possibility that Toyota talks about all the time. How many of you own the book Letters to a Young Man, by show of hands?
Or Letters to a Young Sister.
Or Letters to a Young Sister.
Or The Wealth Cure.
Or all of the books. How many of you own one of Hill Harper's books?
We need to get that number up.
Wow.
If you go to the Toyota booth later, are we giving out books?
Yeah.
Are we going to give out?
I think so. Yes, we are. We are giving out books.
Okay.
I want to ask the question. You might remember, if you own the book Letters to a Young Man, you might think about that little small portion of the book where you talked about you owning a Prius, and you were saying a couple of guys were joking with you and said, "Man, how do you pull girls?" And you said, "Man, I don't pull girls. I'm driving a Prius." Is this true? Is this true?
Okay, so I was one of the first people to buy
own
a Prius, like early generation Prius. Right. And I loved the car. I loved it. Yeah. And ultimately, Lexus approached me, which is a Toyota company. Lexus approached me and asked me to become their spokesperson. Right. And so, and in so doing, they offered me any Lexus in their whole line.
Lexus.
Yeah. They said, because we want to see, if you're going to be speaking about Lexus, we want you to drive a Lexus.
Have the best of the best.
And they were shocked when I told them that I wanted the CT200H, which is basically, I had a Prius, which is basically the Prius of a Lexus, right? It's their smaller,
luxury,
more compact hatchback car, and I didn't ask for that, their biggest, best car, right? And it's interesting to me that people ascribe or attempt to associate their self-esteem with what they drive, and attempt to garner some measure of who their identity. I love cars, and I love racing, and I'm a certified race car driver. I love racing cars. I love cars.
You guys heard that, certified race car driver.
But the thing is, for me, is that what I drive is also an extension of how I believe my carbon footprint is being left to the world. So a Prius fit that model. The CT200H fits that model much more than a big gas guzzling, carbon spewing vehicle. And that's one thing, that's what I love about Toyota. Toyota has more environmentally friendly, sustainable, low carbon emission vehicles than any other car company in the world.
That's right. In fact, it is the #1 car chosen amongst minorities, so that's incredible. But I want to talk to you a little bit about sustainability in your life. I mean, you're an actor, you do so much, you're an author. How does sustainability fit into your life when you have access to so much?
Well, sustainability goes back to what we were talking about in terms of definitions. It's the ability to continue to fight your fight. Right. And you can't have sustainability unless you have health. And I wrote about this in my book, The Wealth Cure. Health is #1, because if you're in pain every day or if you're not healthy, when I was diagnosed with cancer, obviously that shut a lot of things down. Right. Yet, so health and knowing about your health and good health is critical. So sustainability fits with that. Also income, also investments, also building businesses, also giving back. All of these things, your family, your faith. To me, all those are, I call those health and wealth components.
That's right. Which is all sustainability.
It's all sustainability.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did? You know, this is a room full of journalists who are all about to go in to do some incredible things. And I want you to give them a call to action. What is the thing that we need to do as journalists, as the gatekeepers of our narrative and the stewards of it? What do we do moving forward to help tell the narration of sustainability and what you're talking about in education?
Well, I think whether you think it's good or bad, journalism has morphed over time. And I think taking the idea of that agnostic view is something of the past, and it's something of I think folks have to jump in with their own POV, because I just was watching CNN before I came over here and saw a video of the young brother in Chicago that got shot.
Right.
The police
Recent.
body cams that was just released. We have to talk about these things, and a journalist who's on the air actually discussing these issues needs to be able to talk, I believe, from their heart and their own experience.
Right.
And it's not just about reporting something, it's about actually bringing their own point of view to bear and what they think and feel about it.
Is that possible?
It's possible and it's needed. It's
So that's the new
necessary.
possibility,
It's
right?
necessary.
Very, very good. Well, that's all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Mr. Hill Harper.
Let's go over to the booth.
Let's go to the booth.